Well, we now have confirmation on the expected change to a key Senate committee. Clean Skies News told you about this on Wednesday. The Agriculture Committee, which will play a key role in upcoming climate legislation, now has a new chairman, and that could mean a different approach to the Boxer-Kerry cap and trade bill. Clean Skies' Tyler Suiters was at yesterday's hearing at the Ag Committee. And Tyler, you heard this straight from the former chairman.
That's right, Susan. This came after 3 hours of him leading a hearing essentially on the issue of climate legislation and what that may mean to the U.S. agriculture community. He seemed very pointed in his questions during the hearing. He went through 3 panels of witnesses, and then Tom Harkin at the end, after all of this focus on climate change legislation, was very clear about what comes next. He is uncertain about exactly what the outcome would be, but he was very direct in the fact that he was eager to find out, and this came at about 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon when we talked to him just as he was heading off to a very important caucus luncheon.
Well, I have not seen any statements yet. I keep checking my BlackBerry, and I'm on my way to the caucus, and I understand he's making a decision in the caucus, and I assume we'll have something to say after the caucus. And I'm late to get there, right?
Mr. Chairman, quick comment.
Very late to get there. I'm just late. I got to get over there.
So this is your last hearing as chairman of this committee?
I don't know. I'll know in a while.
How quickly will you make up your mind?
Well, things will probably move pretty rapidly, I would assume.
Probably today?
I would think so, yes. I would make up my mind today.
As I said, he was genuine because he did pause for a moment there and really considered that question. And the truth is, that was his final hearing as chairman of the Ag Committee. And yesterday's hearing is very closely tied to the pending cap and trade legislation. The title of the hearing, Global Warming Legislation, Carbon Markets, and Producer Groups. The key witness yesterday, we'll show him to you right now, CFTC Chairman Gary Gensler. Now, he would potentially have oversight of these carbon markets were they established under a cap and trade plan under the Boxer-Kerry bill. This is essential to the House Ag Committee because both in the House and the Senate, these agriculture committees have jurisdiction over the CFTC. That man, Mike Johans, Republican senator, just a freshman, but also the former Secretary of Agriculture, had very pointed questions, worried about the loss of revenue from input costs that would increase under a cap and trade, including fertilizer costs, versus the revenue that would potentially be generated from selling carbon credits. The ag community had witnesses from corn growers, rice growers, grape growers on hand yesterday. And we also heard last week from the National Wheat Growers Association voicing their official concerns about GHG restrictions through legislation or regulation. As for the new Agriculture Committee Chairman, you saw her just a moment ago. She is Blanche Lincoln, and she is also a member of the Energy and Natural Resources Committees who have seen her on our air a number of times. I have talked to her several times after committee hearings, including about her concerns regarding a renewable energy standard, something that her Energy Committee passed out of committee. Her concern is that Arkansas does have some resources. There is some woody biomass available. There is also the potential for wind development, both through commercial production and generation. She's trying to make Arkansas something of a hub for manufacturing. Now, at yesterday's ag hearing, Lincoln reiterated the fact that she is not a fan of cap and trade plan, and her opinion means a great deal more now that she is chairing the Ag Committee. There's a reason why she's not a fan, at least inherently regarding her state's generation. The EIA says coal accounts for 50% of Arkansas's electricity. So this change within the Agriculture Committee could reflect how the climate bill will move through the committee, and also potentially what some of these members will do when the ACELA vote comes down. That is the American Clean Energy Leadership Act. That is the one that passed out of Lincoln's Energy Committee. It includes a renewable energy standard. And Susan, another inherent difference here is that Tom Harkin is an Iowan. He is leaving the chairmanship, obviously very big on corn. That means ethanol and biofuels. Lincoln, coming from Arkansas, has a bit of a different take on this. So even once we get past climate legislation, I'm curious to see what direction your committee heads in with the Renewable Fuel Standard, which has been very controversial across the board.
We're hearing a lot about that with this new incoming chairman. Now, the most she said about cap and trade is not a fan. Did she talk about a carbon tax? Did she talk about an alternative?
When I've talked to her, no, nothing about options. She does not like the cap and trade, and she's not alone in terms of some of the more conservative Democrats in the Senate. Her fellow Arkansan Mark Pryor feels the same way. These are some of the Southern Democrats who have concerns about this because of their generation sources in their home states. And if you follow Harry Reid's lead about folding a renewable electricity standard into one piece of legislation, that's what came from the Senate Energy Committee's bill, then you have more doubters on these regional basis. So Lincoln, Susan, hasn't talked about an alternative. I think think a carbon tax is probably something she may like a little bit more. But again, chairing this committee, all of these chairmen were supposed to have their ideas, their potential changes to the cap and trade bill in Harry Reid's hands by the end of this month. Well, now you have a new chairman. Does she go forward with what Harkin has done already, or does she have a new slate and a new agenda
Sounds
coming
like
in?
she's got her own ideas there. When we talk about how influential she is impacting cap and trade legislation, could this add one more fuel to the fire in the delays that we've been experiencing?
Oh, I think clearly, Susan. Again, it depends on how quickly Harry Reid wants to move. I think she will bow to whatever his wishes are. But look at what the House Agriculture Committee did in terms of wielding its influence on Waxman-Markey. Essentially receiving those assurances and the actual language in the legislation to get what it wanted. That is, the USDA would be in charge of setting carbon credits. That is a key for the agriculture community and for the USDA's jurisdiction. That's what the House Agriculture Committee got. Susan, as for the Senate, with Gary Gensler's presence yesterday, as I mentioned, he says that he is prepared to oversee carbon markets that would be created by a cap and trade, and the House Agriculture and Senate Agriculture Committees, they both have jurisdiction over the CFTC, so that may be the chit that the Senate committee wants to see to move this legislation forward.
All right, be anxious to see what happens next. Tyler Suiters, thank you.
Certainly.